You cannot strength train. You cannot do cardio. You cannot add progressive overload. You cannot chase any adaptations if you're not healthy or if you're injured. And that's the reality. Full stop. And it's especially important as we age. Yet, welcome to Stronger Weekly, brought to you by Purist Nutrition. I'm your host, Jesse Karajat. Merry Christmas and happy holidays for those of you listening on Christmas week. As we normally do each of the last few years, we are closing out 2025, reflecting. This is the time when most of us are reflecting on our life, our health, our future, what worked for our health and fitness this past year and what didn't, what needs to change in 2026. And if you're like most busy people like me, your time matters greatly. And when it comes to your health and fitness, you want to know that you're investing your limited time in the right training, nutrition, supplements, and lifestyle practices. And that's exactly what this show is built for. So every week, I talk to scientists, strength coaches, physicians, authors, psychologists, and high performers. And the goal is simple: to sift through the noise and distill the tools that help you to live stronger and get the best ROI on your fitness investments. So today, we're starting a two-part year-end series to recap everything we've learned in 2025 on Stronger Weekly. And this week, part one, the top 5 fitness lessons and trends of 2025 that you can carry directly into 2026. And part two, next week, are the top 5 lessons on mental health, parenting, stress, productivity, and recovery. So let's get into it. All right, let's do this. The number one lesson, and when I say number one, there's going to be 5 lessons. They won't necessarily be in order of importance, but for me, this is the number one lesson. And it is that strength training is the foundation of not only fitness, but of health span, living longer, healthier, and more studies come out every single month, every single year to support that. Let's just call it what it is. Strength training is not just about aesthetics. It's not just about how you look. It's not about how strong are you. Gone are the days of bro splits and stereotypes around people who strength train, muscle beach. Think about, what might come to your mind when I say that. Strength training is and should be for everyone, and it is here to stay. And again, more and more data coming out. I just picked a couple different studies that I think are the most relevant, but one from JAMA Internal Medicine and the British Journal of Sports Medicine links consistent resistance training to, get this again, not just looking better, longer lifespan, better metabolic health, lower chronic disease risk, and better aging outcomes. Why? Muscle is protective. It stabilizes joints. It protects and enforces and strengthens bone density, improves glucose regulation, and keeps you more independent later in life, increases your quality of life as you age. And if you want to age well, you need muscle on your body. And of course, it does not hurt that more lean muscle mass helps you look better, feel sexier, feel more confident. There's no doubt about that. You just feel great if you have good body composition, which means you have a good amount of lean muscle mass on your body. And there's many ways to do that. There's many ways to grow muscle, and we don't have time on this episode to unpack and kind of debate all of them. We've done that extensively on this show, so I encourage you to look back. Previous episodes, I've had great guests to talk about the best ways, and maybe even more importantly, the most efficient ways, because many of us are busy these days, to build muscle. But I did want to leave you with a little bit of a practical takeaway on how to do that, how to make sure that you're investing time in your fitness program that helps you gain muscle. So for most busy people, which means we don't have hours upon hours every single week to train, here are the simplest kind of lessons and takeaways from the research, and to make it more sustainable for everyone. So first, let's talk about some fundamentals that we've learned this year and in previous years. We should train each muscle group, right? Our pushing muscles, our pulling, our lower, etc., at least twice per week, if possible, and work safely with good form, moderate tempo, don't go too fast, and full range of motion. Secondly, try and get somewhere between 10 to 15 sets per muscle group for most people, not advanced bodybuilders, for most people, 10 to 15 sets per muscle group, and most often work with between 8 and 12 reps per set. That should work for most people. Number 3, track your lifts and aim to consistently challenge yourself. And you can challenge yourself by making things more difficult in a multitude of ways. 1 would be to add more weight. Number 2, add more reps. And a third way could be to slow the tempo to make it more challenging, but be intentional to constantly make your exercises and your fitness more challenging. That's called progressive overload. We're going to talk about that later in this episode. And then lastly, in your strength training, do not neglect proper warm-up and mobility in and around your training. One other one, cardio. Yes, cardio matters greatly. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in this episode. But those are kind of the fundamentals for training that I would focus on. And one such way, if you're limited on time, that you could structure your strength training. Some people lift 3 days a week, some 4, some 5. I would recommend 4 days of strength training. Based on the research, you should be able to hit all of these fundamentals doing that. And one such way to do it, and there's different ways to do this, but one such way that you could research and look into is what's called an upper-lower split. Let's assume we start a week on a Monday, call that day 1. You could train your upper body muscles on Monday, your lower on Tuesday. You could take a break on Wednesday. We can talk about cardio in a little bit, but that could be a steady state cardio day. Come back to Thursday, another upper day, maybe with different exercises. And then Friday, a lower day. And then you can either take off Saturday and Sunday, or Saturday can be a fun day, a cardio day, what have you. But an upper lower split 4 days a week could be a great approach for most people. And a practical takeaway to leave you on this first lesson: strength training is the cornerstone and should be the cornerstone of your 2026 health plan. So build it, maintain it, and make sure that you're challenging yourself to progress.
All right, let's be honest. You're probably not a professional athlete with a personal chef and unlimited recovery time. If you're like me, you're hitting the gym at 5 a.m. before work or squeezing in training between meetings, just trying to stay consistent while life keeps throwing you curveballs. That's exactly who Purist Nutrition was made for. Purist keeps it simple. NSF-certified supplements with minimal, clean ingredients that actually taste good. No artificial ingredients, and no proprietary blends where you're guessing what you're taking. Just premium actives like CreaPure, the purest creatine on the planet, whey isolate protein that is US sourced and easy on the stomach, and hydration that keeps you going without all the extra sugar or sodium. Whether you're a parent juggling kids and training, or just someone who refuses to compromise on quality, Purist Nutrition fits your routine. Built for tomorrow, science-backed, tested and trusted by athletes, and most importantly, effective. Visit puristnutrition.com to see the full lineup of quality supplements. That's puristnutrition.com, because your nutrition should work as hard as you do.
Lesson number 2, cardio is non-negotiable. And I think in 2025, I would say it really kind of entered the mainstream conversation. I think in the last 5 years, put my finger on it, cardio has been talked about, and it always has. But I really think the research and the prominent fitness figures out there are really starting to emphasize the importance of cardio, not just for aesthetics, but for increasing your health span, right? And there's really 2 different kind of levers, cardio levers, that I think everybody should pull. And that would be zone 2 cardio and HIIT, or high intensity interval training. And just to lead with some research, again, maybe a couple facts from Harvard, NIH, so the National Institute of Health, and European Heart Journal. Cardiovascular fitness is one of the strongest predictors of longevity, more than weight, more than blood pressure, or even body fat percentage, which is interesting. And it also remains one of the most effective tools for body recomposition. If you don't know what that term means, essentially shifting how much lean muscle mass you have versus body fat. So it's just a powerful lever that you can pull, in addition to, of course, strength training. And this all assumes that you use it correctly. If you do too much cardio, I think most of us understand that could compromise some of your goals around building muscle, right? So if you use it correctly, don't overdo it. It can be one of the most powerful things you can do. So really quickly, let's just start with zone 2. What is it? Steady, sustained, moderate cardio. Why is zone 2 good for your health? We talked about the aesthetics. Let's talk a little bit more, like lift up the hood a little bit. 1, it builds mitochondrial density, so it improves your energy production, your endurance, and it slows cellular aging. Super important for health span. Number 2, it improves metabolic flexibility, stabilizes your energy, reduces cravings. It's going to help you eat less calories, and improves insulin sensitivity, which is a longevity marker. Number 3, it lowers your resting heart rate, which is one of the strongest predictors of long-term cardiovascular health and lower mortality risk. And then lastly, it reduces inflammation, which lowers the risk of chronic disease across diabetes, depression, cognitive decline, all those things. So again, not just aesthetics, it's helping you live longer and it's helping your organs, it's helping your body. So super important. I'll get into some kind of prescriptions or recommendations for how much and how to do it. But let's talk on HIIT for a second. So that's high intensity interval training. So these are shorter repeating bouts of max or near maximal effort. First and foremost, it improves like nothing else. It improves your VO2 max faster than any other method. And VO2 max is one of the most reliable predictors of longevity. If you follow this show, you all know that I use a Whoop to track my health span, right? So I have my actual biological age, 41, as I'm recording this. And then Whoop is just one such tool that helps try to predict for me what is my cellular age. They call it your Whoop age, but like how old am I really? And as I'm sitting here right now, it's 32.4. So I'm 32 years old cellularly, even though I'm biologically 41. You can argue the accuracy of that. It's just one such way to make sure I'm investing in fitness and nutrition and a lifestyle that's making sure I'm not aging too fast, right? All of that to say, Whoop tells me, based on your sleep, based on your habits, based on your training, blah, 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 here are the things that are reducing your age the most. And when I look at that, VO2 max is the one tool that is reducing that actual age the most. It's VO2 max. Next thing though, 2 more things on HIIT. It strengthens your cardiovascular system. So a more efficient heart that can adapt and be flexible for what you're asking it to do, lowers cardiovascular disease risk and boosts your performance. And then again, it's linked with a longer health span. So here's some practical guidance for busy folks in particular, but for anybody to layer those 2 tools. Again, zone 2 and HIIT over your strength training. But we don't want our strength training and our cardio to blow up and expand so that's 8, 10, 11, 12 hours a week, because it's just not sustainable, especially if people have a lot of responsibilities. So how do you layer them over? So let's start with zone 2. I would recommend you can add those at the end of the strength training sessions. You want to get, most people agree, between 90 and 120 minutes per week of intentional zone 2 cardio. So if you want to get around 90 minutes, you can do it after a strength training session. Personally, I do that twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. I choose a shorter strength training session. And by shorter, I mean duration of time. And then I add on 30 minutes of zone 2 after that. So you can do that, or you can have a dedicated day. In that example that I gave earlier, if you do 4 strength training sessions, you could do upper, lower, and then on Wednesday, do an intentional longer bout of zone 2 cardio, just kind of recover, and then go back to strength training. So you can put it at the end of your strength training. And the reason I say that, by and large, most people don't do this type of cardio before their strength training. It can impact your performance. So do it afterwards. And also there's some fat loss benefits to doing it that way, right? And then how do you do it? My favorite way is to put a treadmill on an incline and just walk steadily. I like that, frankly, because I'm a multitasker. I can be on my phone, emails, writing scripts for episodes, whatnot. So treadmills are great. Stair steppers are great. You can get on a rower. You can swim, but it's low impact. It allows you to work continuously in a moderate effort, a place of moderate effort, right? So there's different ways to do that. Now let's talk about HIIT for a second. HIIT is harder. You don't need to do as much of it. Some people say as much as 15 minutes a week. You could do 1 or 2 bouts of 10 minutes. There's disagreement around there, but you don't have to do as much of it. So I would personally aim for 1 or 2 10 to 15 minute bouts of this. And what you're looking to do is work for a period of time, usually a shorter amount of time. It could be 30 seconds, it could be 15 seconds, and then rest for maybe double of that. They call that like a 1-to-2 ratio. And the different things that you could use, you can do an assault bike, you can do sprints, assuming that your lower body is fresh. You can do a tempo run where you're running hard for a minute and then you jog for 2 minutes. You could do burpees, box jumps, make it fun. Don't get injured, but anything that's going to allow you to work at those near maximal efforts. Personally, I will do this after a strength training session, and it'll be an upper body session is what I'll do. Or on Saturdays, sometimes I'll just dedicate, say, like a tempo run to do that. But if there's one takeaway, you want to get your heart rate up into zone 5 at least once per week, not for a long amount of time, maybe twice per week. And there's different ways you can do that. So in summary there on the cardio, if strength training is your foundation, your cardio is your insurance policy. It's going to help you to lose a little extra fat, but it's going to make sure that you're increasing your health span and living longer.
Let's be honest, most of us don't have a private gym, a full-time trainer, or hours every day to lift. If you're like me, you don't even have time to commute to a local gym. You're training early in the morning or carving out 40 minutes between work, kids, and everything else competing for your time. And when fitness matters that much to your well-being and your health, you've got to have home fitness equipment that's as strong and reliable as you are. That is exactly why I use Rep Fitness. Rep is built for people who train with purpose, people who need high-quality, reliable equipment engineered for real strength. Designed right here in Colorado, USA, Rep Fitness provides racks, benches, bars, and plates that offer commercial-grade durability without commercial gym prices. Premium materials, smart engineering, and fair pricing. Whether you're outfitting your very first garage gym or upgrading your current setup to match where you want to go with your training, Rep makes gear that keeps up with your life and your goals. Visit repfitness.com to see their full lineup. Racks, benches, bars, plates, conditioning tools, and everything you need to build a home gym that works as hard as you do. That's repfitness.com. It's finally time to pursue your strength.
Lesson 3, consistency is king and progressive overload is pivotal, right? So firstly, I remember the days when there were lots of debates around the ideal time of day to train. Everybody had an opinion on this. There were those people in the late afternoon for hormonal reasons and strength. There was first thing in the morning fasted for fat loss. Don't stress or obsess over when you train. Just train and pick a time that's consistent. And then also don't be disappointed if you map out a time in the week you're going to train and then life happens and you have to push it either to another day or to another time of day, but don't stress about it. A large meta-analysis in sports medicine this year in 2025 confirmed what many of us kind of already just intuited, which is that for almost all of us, meaning we're not high-level professional athletes, the time of day that we train has almost no meaningful effect on fat loss, muscle gain, or long-term performance. Morning, afternoon, night, it doesn't really matter for almost all of us. Just be consistent, which is self-explanatory. And we just reviewed strength training and cardio guidance. So choose your routine, plan out your training, and stick to it week over week, month over month. But let's talk about a little bit more progressive overload, which I touched on earlier in the strength training section. Progressive overload, again, means consistently challenging yourself, consistently tracking your training and looking to add difficulty or complexity, because that is what's going to force adaptations. Everything that we're trying to do with fitness, whether it's cardio or strength training or mobility, our body will adapt. And those adaptations are the improvements that we're after. You want to grow muscle. You want to lose fat. You want to live longer. That's your body adapting to what you're asking it to do. So you're chasing what's called adaptations. And it won't happen if you don't work hard. And it won't happen if you don't continuously challenge your body to make it to change. So progressive overload is the key word that years ago and in 2025 particularly people are focusing on. I've heard a lot of the biggest fitness minds and influencers out there, and we know who they are, that are starting to talk about the importance of hard sets, training hard. There are some people that even say you should track how many hard sets did you do versus easy sets. And what that's touching on and speaking to is progressive overload. And your body, again, adapts to anything you ask it to do, whether that's running faster, farther, longer, adding more weight, reps to an exercise, performing more intense, harder intervals, increasing your range of motion. These are all adaptations. And if you want results, real long-term results, the science shows that you cannot coast through your training. You have to work hard. So I think a way to do that is to log your workouts. You don't have to count every single set, every single rep, every single weight. I've been there. It's fun at first. It's not sustainable, and it kind of takes the fun out of working out. But track in some way. It could be, week over week, choose one lift. Let's just say it's a barbell bench press. What did you do this week? And then look back on that one lift and then track that one. Because for the most part, if you're getting stronger in a chest press, you're probably getting stronger in your flies and your dips and those other things. So you could just track one particular lift and then intentionally add weight or reps, or even, again, slow down the tempo. If you're running, you can just log down in a journal or on your phone. There's lots of apps for this. How long did it take you to run 5 miles or 3 miles, wherever you're at, this week? And then 4 weeks later, how long did it take you? And try to push yourself more. 2 examples, you get the point, but just find a way that works for you that's not too overbearing to keep track of your training and then intentionally make it more challenging. And I think that's the easiest way you can do it. I personally am an old school guy. I have an Excel document that I've been using forever. I'm constantly updating it based on my training. I'm even looking back years ago to see where I was at then, always trying to beat myself, make it fun, be consistent with it, but always try to make your training harder, but not to the point where you're going to burn out. And my last point on this is, for me, if you're going to be investing time in your training, if you're going to set aside 6 hours a week, why wouldn't you try to maximize every single minute of that time to get to the goals that you're searching for? Lesson number 4. Sorry, nobody wants to hear this, but mobility and elasticity, that might be a new word, are essential for your training and long-term performance. And look, you cannot strength train. You cannot do cardio. You cannot add progressive overload. You cannot chase any adaptations if you're not healthy or if you're injured. And that's the reality. Full stop. And it's especially important as we age. Yet, I've found with myself and seen in other people and read that proper warm-ups and mobility are the most neglected aspect of training. And I get it. We're busy. It's boring. There's no instant gratification in holding a static stretch. It's just the stuff that we want to skip over and get into the training, but we're shooting ourselves in the foot long term. And I'm starting to see this at 41. I've been training for 20 years now. And people have always said, you're going to get tread on the tires, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get injured, and it sucks. But I've noticed, especially when I got to 38, 39, and the age is irrelevant. It's more like how long you're training and how smart you're training. But I'm starting to get injured. I'm starting to feel it. I'm recovering slower. And guess what? The thing that I have always neglected is taking the time to be patient, to warm up properly and focus on mobility. And I'm just going to say this right now. I'm not advocating for you to add a whole nother day and layer hours and hours on top of your strength training and your cardio, which we already talked about, to make sure that you're bulletproofing your body. I'm not, but there are ways that you can do it efficiently and effectively in and around your workouts, just to make sure that you don't get injured, which is going to slow the progress that you're looking for in your training. And 2025 was full of research on this topic, but 2 studies that I'm going to call out. One is from the American College of Sports Medicine, that's the ACSM, as well as Stanford University. And these reports showed that intentional mobility and elastic qualities, and we'll talk about that, lead to better injury prevention, better tendon health, which is huge, enhanced speed and power, which is going to get more results from your strength training, and improved quality of movement, especially after 40. So how do you do this? How do you layer in some proper warm-ups and some mobility into your training? So let's talk about your warm-ups. I think most people understand it's important to have some type of warm-up. Maybe it's 5 minutes walking on a treadmill, somewhat rudderless and mindlessly. Why don't you swap that out for something like jumping rope, which is more of a mobile movement. It's something that's going to increase your elasticity of your tendons, right? So try doing something like jumping rope, some movement patterns prior to your strength training that mirror the workout that you're going to do, dynamic mobility, box jumps, but something movement based. And there's plenty of research out there on how to do this, but look at your warm up and ask yourself, could I be focusing more on mobility and not just trying to get my kind of heart rate up more blindly. That's one way to do it. After your workout, you can do controlled mobility after a workout, some soft tissue work, something like a foam roller. I don't particularly love those, but they're obviously very, very useful and effective. And even some breath work after you train while you're doing some stretching is found to be very, very beneficial. 5 minutes before you train, something intentional around mobility, dynamic stretching, things like that. And then something at the end to cool down and lengthen your muscles is all you really need. There's tons of good research out there. Just type in best mobility routine or best stretch routine. Lots of science. Come back to this show and we'll continue to distill different ways that you can focus on that. But just make sure that you are not neglecting the most important aspect of training, which is making sure that you're even healthy enough to do it.
Look, if you're like me, you enjoy a drink every now and then. A glass of wine with dinner, a cold beer after a long week, maybe even a night out with friends. But you want to stay in control. That's why I'm excited about Clutch, the newest innovation from Or Health. Clutch is a fast-acting naltrexone mint you take before you drink. It dissolves quickly, absorbs through your mouth, and starts working fast, helping you curb the cravings without giving up drinking altogether. It's discreet, portable, and designed for real life. The mints come in a sleek, pocket-sized case that goes wherever you go. If you've been trying to moderate or simply drink smarter, this is the tool that you need. To get started, text STRENGTH to 710-710. That's STRENGTH to 710-710. Answer a few quick questions, and your Clutch will be shipped directly to your door. No more hangovers, no more guilt, just the control you need in the palm of your hand. Bulletproof your drinking with Clutch now.
Last but not least, lesson number 5, and this probably should have been the first lesson. It has to do with nutrition. We can't do an episode on fitness and health span without talking about nutrition. And I'll start here. We could do 5, 10 episodes on nutrition just to help you choose the nutritional lifestyle, give you all the fundamentals and the guidance. But I wanted to pick one, and it's based on not only what I've learned, but what we've covered in the news here on this show week over week. And it has to do with ultra processed foods and that they need to be avoided. Go back in this show, do your own research, type in ultra processed foods, type in UPF. You're going to see news headlines happening right now, because even in the past couple of weeks, they're coming out linking ultra processed foods to the common killers of mankind, things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, you name it. We have to avoid ultra processed foods, which means the inverse is we have to focus on whole foods. Whole foods are the most important aspect. We could talk about what is the best nutritional lifestyle, things like carnivore, plant-based, pescatarian. I think that's what it's called, Mediterranean, whatever. That's kind of like the next piece, but absolutely foundationally, we have to be focused on whole foods. And if you have kids out there, for them as well, not just for yourself and your fitness, this has to do with living longer. We want to live longer. And let's talk about blue zones. I think most of us have heard of blue zones. And in my opinion, these are the most convincing natural experiments in humankind that are running. These are people in certain places that are shown to live longer. So it's a worthy process of asking why. Why are these people in these certain sections of our world living so much longer than, say, here in America? And some of the blue zones that are most cited, you have Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, various places in Greece, and even here in the US, Loma Linda, California, are some of the longest living populations on Earth. How much longer are they living? So as of 2023, I don't have 2025 research. In the US, life expectancy sits around 78 years old, which is actually older than I thought, but 78 years old. Now hear this, in these blue zones that I mentioned, it's common to reach the mid 90s, and people live to 100 years old in blue zones at a 10 times higher rate than in America. And this isn't a genetic thing. Like Loma Linda, California, are Americans that people think are part of a particular type of community, church community out that way. But in Loma Linda, these are Americans with the same genetics as me. And they're living to 100 at a 10 times higher rate than my family. Why is that? What are they doing? And the biggest difference are daily habits and whole food nutrition. So in those areas, it's found that these people walk more. That's more daily steps. So that's more about movement. But most importantly, they shut out ultra processed foods and eat only whole foods. And in some cases, in Japan particularly, those folks don't even sleep as much as the average American. So they're sleeping less, which a lot of people argue is a number one or number two or number three kind of lever you can pull to live longer. So they're sleeping less, but they're walking more and eating whole foods, and they're living 15 years longer than most people. So that should really stick with you about the importance of whole foods, because we're not just here to train to look good in our 30s and 40s and maybe our 50s to die at 68 years old. We want to live longer, healthier. So that's my preach to you. Whole foods matter so much, because what is the point of again, living healthier in a shorter kind of lifespan? So how do you focus on whole foods? Simple, hard to do, especially if you're busy and you're on the go. But let's start with this. Do choose a nutritional lifestyle that is sustainable for you to do. But then when you're shopping, look at labels. If you see more than one ingredient, it's most likely not a whole food. That doesn't apply to every single food out there, but start looking at labels. Shop the exteriors of the grocery store, wherever you're shopping. That's where typically you'll see produce. That's when you'll see, all the different meats and all the different things and the fruits and the vegetables that are going to be whole foods. The center aisles typically are filled with foods that might have some things, some additives to it to help it last longer, to have a better shelf life so that you can buy it and they can make more money, besides the point. But shop the exteriors and stick to single ingredient foods as best you can. If you really want to get tactical with this, you should also be thinking about, is it organic? Is it farm raised? Are there chemicals that helped it either get the taste or the longevity so that you could buy it? But whole food, single ingredients are the absolute best things you can do. And then one other thing on nutrition I'll add is it's not always possible to get all the vitamins and minerals that we need from our diet. And I keep using the B word, especially if you're busy. So do look at supplements. Supplements can just help fill in the gaps around vitamins and minerals that you might not be getting. Things like, vitamin D3, things like a fish oil like that, right? Even hydration. So do use supplements to help kind of round out your nutrition. We happen to be sponsored by Purist Nutrition, which is an organization that focuses on organic, third-party tested supplements, so that you're not putting junk in your body and you're still getting the benefits of the good stuff. So Purist is one such avenue that you could pursue, but focus on whole foods, choose a sustainable nutritional lifestyle, and layer supplements over to make sure you're getting the full picture that you need. But one more time, avoid ultra-processed foods at all costs if you can, because that is an investment in your health and your longevity. Well, that's it, folks. Those are the top 5 fitness lessons from 2025 that you absolutely should carry into 2026 and beyond. Next week, we're going to shift gears. We're going to move away from fitness. We're going to talk about the other part of the equation, right? Your mental health. We're going to focus on stress management, productivity hacks, recovery, parenting even, because that's something I always want to talk about on the show, because it's not just about fitness. It's about building a lifestyle that supports the fitness. So that'll be next week. We always have to ask, if you're still here listening at the end of the episode, if you can leave a rating or review, that would be so helpful and appreciated. You can even share this with someone if you think it could help them. Because again, on this show, we're just all about kind of condensing all of the dense information out there to help everyone grow stronger weekly. So if you took anything from this show, if you could leave a rating and review and share it with someone, I would be so grateful. Again, happy holidays if you're listening around the holiday time. I hope you're having a great week and you have a great holiday season and close to the year. I hope this episode helped you. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next week on Stronger Weekly.